So good afternoon, everyone, and it's my pleasure to stand here and welcome all of you. Very warm welcome to all of you to this, in my opinion, really exciting event and an exciting session for the afternoon. A very warm welcome to the participants, of course, who make the event, to all of the judges, and then to all of you. Just to give you a brief overview of the objective behind this event, this event is basically to showcase, healthcare product innovation that is happening in India, and that's the basic objective. Now, it's a great forum that we have here with industry bodies, industries, startups, and several other parts of the startup ecosystem. So therefore, we thought it's a great idea to showcase a set of really good innovation in the healthcare space, which is making impact in India, which will really aid healthcare delivery, etc. In this country. So that's what the objective of the whole thing is. So again, a very warm welcome, and I really look forward to the event. One thing is, as the participants come and present, it'll be nice if you can make some noise at the end of the presentation and encourage them and so on. Not during the presentation, but after that. So I request you to get into it. There's a lot of audience participation as well in this event. So look forward to a great event, and a warm welcome again to all of you. Thank you for coming.
We're going to try that loud cheer out just now as we welcome the next speaker. Mr. Arvind Tiwari, he's the chair of the IoT Forum. I welcome him over.
So Shyam, thanks for getting the cheering set up for me. All right, guys, thanks a lot for coming here. I think at TIE we do a lot of entrepreneur, and we run a product showcase every month. So we have done it a lot. And when we were planning this two-day event, one of the things we felt, this is very corporate. There's a lot of training on Industry 4 and all that. It's a one-way communication. We're not having enough interaction. So we said we will do the product showcase here. We selected healthcare because that's an important segment, not covered in our other things. So we selected. And also at TIE, there are two two impact areas we have selected for future work. And by that, I mean explicitly, there may not be enough money for you to make $1 billion, but it has huge influence on the population. One is agriculture and water, and the second is public health. So we are very keen to be able to get the healthcare done. Now, for this, there are two things here I wanted to explain, and then I will hand over. One is that we have 3 awards. One award is a Popular Choice Award. All of you will see a flashcard near your desk. Jury members are not allowed to use it. Others, any startup you like, and there is no constraint, what reason you like, why you like, you are only allowed one choice, popular choice. At the end of the session, you will have people collect, there will be places for you to drop. Please drop us. We have teams who will take about 10 minutes to add all up, and we will give an award for popular choice. A recognition, and later mentorship and other things from TIE. So we will operationalize it later. So that's the first award. Yeah. Please don't cheat. Come on, don't game. The second award will be for innovation, and innovation we all understand. Entrepreneurship, VCs, we all prize innovation. So I will not explain innovation. The third prize, which is actually very important, in public health, innovation does not get enough adoption. You have a regulated environment, you have doctors, you have a lot of reasons why adoption doesn't happen, even though it may be very innovative. But from an impact perspective, adoption is important. And we see adoption as orthogonal to innovation. And an example I will use is the sachet. I mean, we all know in India that shampoos were not used by a lot of people, a lot of problems, till you invented a 1 rupee sachet. And then usage rocketed. So whether it is pricing, business model, it's really not an innovation in the product or features. It's a different sort of thing, but the primary motivation is adoption. I have requested the presenters, applicants, to indicate what was their primary motivation when they were choosing this. Was it innovation or impact? And as usual, they will say both. Then I told them, you run the risk of the juries making a decision what they want to do. But we want to encourage and public healthcare is not just about innovation, it's about adoption. The real measure is in adoption, so you want to encourage that. So that's the 3 awards. Coming to the process, the way we run it, names will be called in an order. The PPTs are loaded. If they have videos, that's loaded. They get 10 minutes to present. Around 8-minute mark, I assume they will be warned. 10 minutes is ruthless. They will be shut down mid-sentence. So they will get nervous. After 8 minutes, they will shut down. So that's a different problem. After 10 minutes, normally in such sessions, there's very little time for question and answer, so that we want to encourage that. So we're budgeting about 6 minutes for question answer, 3 minutes from jury, 3 minutes from audience, give and take. If the juries have a lot of questions, the audience loses. If the jury don't have enough questions, the audience gets more. My request to the audience is, please keep your question as questions and not observations. If you have suggestions, offline. Pointed, simple questions. And my request to Akash and Girish who are running it is, we need to enforce the rules and the time, otherwise we'll run out. After all the 7 have presented, we will take a break for about 15 minutes. We will move to the bigger hall. The awards will be done in the hall downstairs. By that time, that session should have completed. And there, the final closing ceremony, the awards, and reflections on the 2 days will be done. And I will now, Girish, I'll hand over. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Arvind Tiwari, for running us through the logistics and how it's going to be panning out. So for us to get here, there's been a lot of action that happened in the background. For that, I'm going to call upon Dr. Mohan Shankar, who is a faculty at IIT Madras. He's also the director for HTIC Lab, which is an incubation lab. And most importantly, he's the chairman of the jury for this session. So let me call upon Dr. Mohan Shankar.
Actually, Arvind has explained the process. So there were about 40 odd entries, and they've been shortlisted to the numbers that will be presenting here. We had a wide, actually quite wide, all the way from biomaterials to even a couple of traditional medicine adoption into a digital way. Lot of digital health and e-health things, which is interesting because you will get the maximum kind of probing questions there. Because the fact that many people are doing it tells me one of the first things is how is it going to be different when it comes to you. And devices, and very interesting devices as well, right? So devices that which we didn't expect. It's not just cure, some of them even to monitor even when you're not in a early stage disease. So that's what it is, and the rest of it, whatever Arvind has explained. More importantly, I want to introduce the jury. Start from Jim Dosher, if you can just wave, get up and wave. Is GM of Healthcare in Analog Devices. Ramesh Radhakrishnan, get up and wave. That's why you don't put a professor as a jury chairman. Right? MD of Artiman Ventures, also an alumnus, so you have to get up and wave. Right? Dr. Ashwin Nayak, many of you know, founder of Vatsalya. Right? And that's pretty much it. I am what I am, he told. And look forward to it. Right? Just keep the time in order. That's the most important thing. And be specific. So remember, we have read this, right? So there's no point in telling about things which are very obvious. Right? Get to the point of what is difficult, what is the problem getting solved, and let me actually jump the gun in front of even before the jury deliberation and say, the adoption piece, don't duck it, right? Because we know the adoption is the difficult part. Right? The problems in healthcare are very obvious, right? Unlike, let's say, some other fields where you have to do something, then go after finding a solution. Yeah, everything is very clear. I mean, people are not getting enough healthcare, simple. But that also means the adoption is very difficult. So please don't duck the question of why the adoption is hard and how are you going to do, how your chances are better than the other person, if at all somebody exists. So that's about it. So welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Mohan Shankar. So let's get kicked off with the action. These are going to be 15 nervous moments for each of the presenters. So it's very important that you keep their morale up what they need is a lot of cheer. So I'm going to call upon the first presenter, first company, Cardiac Design Labs.
Thanks, Girish. Good afternoon. Okay. My name is Anand, and I represent a company called Cardiac Design Labs. Okay. Quick one. I'll give a quick brief to the details on the summary of the company, and then we'll get on to the product and what we do. So we are into designing, developing, and deploying intelligent devices for healthcare delivery. We're 4 years old. Unlike other startups, we've spent a good time on the ground. And we have developed a platform and some variants in the products which we're taking to market now. The USP is advanced cardiac diagnostics to smaller hospitals. That is what we're concentrating on. Disruptive product, a new market segment. Revenue streams are to be pay-per-use. We're trying to find a new way to deploy these as well, because buying of devices, again, is a challenge at smaller places. We've won a couple of awards. The team is very interesting. We have some senior doctors on board and engineers. And we have some market specialists as well. Current status is, it is hospital tested. We've started deployment, very small level, but it's started deployment. And we're testing out a few usage variants now. So a few of them are on the ground. Where we are now is the business model has to be validated. How does who in the ecosystem actually earn out of this service that we bring in, and what happens, and how is the healthcare delivery actually successful or not? So this is the stage we are in. So quick one, that's the team. We have a few angels, a few doctors, a few eminent advisory people, and a core team that's actually developed the product. Okay. So the problem. So about 4 years back, when I did quit my job, I said we'll do something in healthcare, develop a product. We wanted to actually understand how and what are the healthcare problems that stay on the ground. So we did a good amount of research in that. And then two things obviously popped up. Everybody knows this. Diabetes standing number one as a disease, but it's a chronic disease. Number two is cardiac, and cardiac was a killer. So if you quick one, 64 million cardiac patients in this country, 30% of the deaths all is contributed to cardiac. Very simple, the problem was 90% actually walked into the small hospitals. There's only a small percentage actually went into the large hospitals, those are in the cities. And very quickly, the resting ECG machine boxes that are there are very good for acute management. Patient has crashed, you look at an ECG, you get to see patterns, and you're able to start diagnosis. Any early symptoms, be it arrhythmia or coronary artery disease, requires something more to actually come to a conclusion that he or she has an early symptom of disease. So that is where we said we'll play. We will try to bring a device that would actually help what advanced cardiac diagnostics is big hospitals do into smaller hospitals. Big challenge, because you don't have cardiologists there, you don't have trained technicians there, you just have the standard doctor and some nurses there. So we had to make things automatic, things had to be seamless, and very importantly, it had to be affordable. So all of these were taken. And to complete the diagnosis, you need a cardiologist to sign off if he actually found a patient and things detailed. So we had to put a workflow to actually complete the reporting and report printed back at this starting place where the patient walked in. That is the full cycle of the problem. So how did we solve this? So when we looked around, we knew we had to do ambulatory ECG. It was very clear. Any amount of Holter level monitoring or stress analysis has to be ECG on the move. The patient has to be able to move. So we said we'll bring in features of stress testing and ambulatory ECG and resting ECG into a single box. We said they should have a one-stop solution to be able to diagnose a cardiac patient, frontline, be able to filter. For this to happen, we needed the algorithms, and they have to run real time. You can't employ a technician who runs through a PC software, analyzes the ECG, generates a report. They had to happen automatic. We said that's another thing we would do, and we wanted to do this real time. Okay. Third is communication. We had to put in telemetry to complete the reporting cycle, get the episodes that was identified by the system, get a cardiologist to look at it, and complete a report. So all this is something we took up, and we said, like the wave that's happening around, we said we'll also do apps. Let it all be on mobile phones. The reporting, walking through the whole to kind of go through artifacts, go through segmented episodes, clear them on phone apps itself. Well, the PC option also is there, but definitely we wanted to do it on phones. So that's the solution for you. It has a body-worn component, exactly like the one I'm wearing. Then there's a bedside computing engine that goes with it that does the analysis. So we, unlike of the companies that do, we are not big data company. We actually take data only that's relevant onto the cloud and get it onto the backend. So the computing is actually distributed, not centralized. The centralized section is actually only a postmaster, only holds things and gets things to places. Third is the cloud, which holds the confirmed episodes. Fourth is the apps that actually provide the solution. So very quickly, the device I'm strapped, this is what we call the hospital variant. This is actually plotting my 12-lead ECG and doing real-time monitoring of all the arrhythmias as well as the ST segment, which is the coronary artery disease. Okay. We went about the extent of actually building a Bruce protocol onto this software. I can actually run on a treadmill. If you can program the stages on the treadmill, you can actually execute a Bruce protocol. Now, there are deployment problems with Bruce protocol, but that we're trying to figure out. Ambulatory ECG straight away. All this software that I'm talking to you about, and the device that I'm wearing, and the electrodes that go on to the patch that we talk about, they're all developed by Cardiac Design Labs. We had to work on each component because this being truly ambulatory had to be light, so we read the cables. The cables are 1 mm. They're as good as a thin wire, 1 mm cables, and the hardware is something that we developed. And the chunk of the time for 4 years what we spent went on to the algorithms and testing of this at a hospital. So the first time in 2014 we actually took it to a hospital, it was KMC Manipal. We failed miserably in June. The doctor was very canny. He got us onto a patient, he said, can you put it there? We did that and we weren't reading even the heart rate. That's the truth, I'm telling you. There's a graph. He had a QS pattern which just goes inverted like this. The patient had a severe attack. The doctor was very smiling there because the heart rate also wasn't showing up. And we pulled ourselves back. We spent the next 4 months trying to figure out what it is that we had missed. By then we had got on to field. We spent the next 1 week before we found up to understand where all we actually missed. And then by October when we did this test, we started passing out each patient. So we did about 88 positive cases. He wanted to see the efficacy of the algorithms. So we stood there and things that we didn't catch, we actually worked with him on ground, made the changes and started clicking. So these are available for any doctor who wants to see what is the success of the algorithms and how do we do. Those are all available. And we also have the MIT database test results, the sensitivity, and so on. So very quickly, the roadmap is 4 variants. The first one I showed you was the hospital variant, bedside monitoring and stress monitoring. The second one, the whole thing runs on a mobile, and you can do full Holter monitoring, real time. This is where the interesting part is. Lower on the ground, nothing but the nurse who actually switched on the device, put it on. The workflow is all automatic at the back end. The third one, which you're yet to put it in place, is the post-operative monitoring. We think the same platform can actually provide a new service. That's a patient discharged from hospital can be put onto a small patch, and the patient can be actually monitored for healthy recovery. You could actually plan change drugs that actually were given to the patient post-recovery. You could see patterns of what's happening. Maybe the doctor chose to look at the data every day. All this is through apps again, and you can interact back with the patient. Thank you. Fourth one is we think consumer healthcare is something we want to touch. We would like to build a wearable that will be diagnostic quality, that can actually do active health monitoring. We're still on drawing boards on that. We're still trying to figure out what it's. First look, it looks simple, but I think it's the most complicated one to build. It's something that we want to get to. The challenges, very quickly, we had a lot of clinical challenges, understanding cardiac. They all look straightforward when you read off the wiki page, I must tell you, but then after that the trouble starts. So I think our cardiologist was very patient. We took the most patient man on board, I think. The other mentor who selected it for him was pretty neat. I think each round of understanding we would have troubled him about 15 times on the same subject. He went through 3 years, two days per week. Regular cardiology classes were conducted. We had Skype calls. We put him on fully on Skype, so he got really comfortable. So that was one. The second was the use case. We had to reduce a lot of automation, put a lot of automation in place, the reporting, the apps that we were. The app is fantastic now. We have actually scroll bar, which is like the Facebook timeline that shows you indications of how far the episodes have happened. You can actually filter out and see which episodes you want to see. All that can be done on the app. Engineering challenges were we had to produce production quality, low volume, and not invest on molds because we don't have that kind of money, and that caused us to innovate again. we have, what I'm wearing is made without a mold. A simple laser cut, bent aluminum and powder coated things, which all will clear whatever certification that's required. We can change the design within a week. That's the power of this assembly. And then the business challenges are what we're facing now. So we plan to integrate with the virtual wallet. We would like to deploy these devices free of cost to the center, load a prepaid amount in the virtual wallet, like maybe Paytm or PayUmoney, I'm just using names. And then per diagnosis, we would like to deduct. Now, we would also like to run that service through a channel partner. This is where the gray area starts. Like they pointed out, this is the most difficult phase we're starting off with. The current deployments, we have done about 5. And we've done it without a channel partner, and the deal seems to be working well for the hospital and us. So we just started our small setup as we're going. In the next 6 months, we would like to scale to at least 100 devices, get the different segments, and go through. Thank you.
10 minutes are up.
Yeah, that was that.
Anand, we want you back here. So we have 5 minutes of questions. Yep. All right.
You talked about algorithms. There are several companies which work on algorithms. There are several companies which work on algorithms. What I want to understand is, what are the metrics around your algorithms which make it different?
Okay. So the first thing is the full gamut of comprehensive tests, which is all the rhythms that are required, and the coronary artery disease, the ST segment, we're all able to do on a 1.2 gigahertz processor comfortably. Actually, we're able to do on a 700 megahertz processor. These algorithms which are there in the market require a fat PC or a back-end processing. They don't run on smaller systems. That's the first differentiation, because when I did check with some of them availability of algorithms, they were able to give a small set, maybe AFib and a few others, but they were not able to clock as well as what they're doing. And many of them are working on pattern-based recognition. We said that won't work because you need a knowledge set to build with it. We're doing pure mathematical. We cracked a problem with Euclidean geometry.
Yeah, no, that's all fine, but I'm saying at the top level, can you tell me that you are X% more accurate than somebody else?
That will happen 6 months down the line. We have seen only about 400 patients. It's not a good data enough for me to accurately say a number. We did the KMC test. If you see the test with what we saw and what we declared, it will show 98% sensitivity. It's not correct because I need a larger set. We would like to class 1,500 patients, and we would be able to grandly say, look, our numbers are good.
What are your targets? Where do you want to be in comparison to the rest of the market today? Is the market at 50% and you can be at 95% false positive or false negative rate? Or are you, where are you going to be? How disruptive are you going to be in the market?
Okay. The false positive is where the good trick is. See, the good ones catching are fairly very good at. Now, how many false ones are you going to load into the chain and load the cardiologist? Because all those are things that he's going to get. So some of the tricks that we have put are to filter out those, ability for him to filter. So we would like to cross maybe a 70 to 80% false positive. I know that's aggressive, but we would like to achieve that. And we think it's possible compared to what we're seeing now. First, a cardiologist actually was very skeptical to what can be hit. The method we have chosen actually is fairly accurate. We've imitated how a cardiologist looks at it. That's what we did, rather than doing the traditional signal processing method of taking patterns and doing comparisons. So for that reason, I think we will be having better numbers than what most of them have in the market.
So I'll go to the business question directly. So let's assume everything goes well.
Okay.
You are the best product in the market.
Okay.
Let's assume that. No, it actually, when the question starts there, right? I mean, I didn't see much of, you're saying you'll find a channel partner.
Yeah.
That's just saying that the channel partner now has to find a way how to make this work. Because currently, if you look at cardiac monitoring, right, it either happens in the hospital through an ECG machine that's bought from companies and which serves many purposes, not just patients who need cardiac monitoring. The other than this, Holter monitor, which is also supplied by the hospital most of the times. People don't buy it from a third party. So it looks to me that you just want this partner to actually replace that device with your device. That will not grow your market. Right? So essentially, I'm asking you, how will you grow this market? Okay. Because the market itself is small. Let me tell you that. There are at least 50, you're aware of this, there are at least 50 such companies. I mean,
Okay.
They may not, let's assume that you are in the leading of that, that's fine. Let's assume that. But there are, I can tell you there are 50 such companies.
Okay.
Mobile ECG.
Okay.
Right? I mean, that's pretty much the larger. You may have done a fantastic job on the algorithms, which Ramesh was pointing. Let's all assume that everything works fine. But how will this market grow, and what is your, some kind of market projection? What do you expect? How many numbers? Do you have any such ideas?
Okay. So, there are 2-3 parts to the question that you asked. So, the first piece is the number of odd solutions there are, they are actually targeting the resting ECG. We are trying to stay out of that and say, let's do the monitoring piece for all X set of problems that patients can report, which the resting ECG will not catch. It's the first set. So, I am actually not replacing anybody's device there. If they want to use just an ECG for multiple other uses, you said, let's say they want to look at for general, they will take a resting ECG, fairly enough, you do not have to put our system on. But if you have our system, we will also do resting ECG, is what we are saying. Now, for the next set that is there, the Holters as such do not reach those markets. This rhythm monitoring for ambulatory ECG are not beyond big hospitals today, it is very clear. And these hospitals, I have found doctors who actually try to do this as a service elsewhere, where somebody in a motorcycle takes this Holter, goes, puts it in that clinic where the patient came, gets it back, analyzes it, produces a report, and he gives a. This is the kind of market that we want to actually scale up. Tell this cardiologist, you do not have to rally Holters now, because Holters are expensive, they like to run it in their center, you need a technician. I am saying you found a center where you are, the hospital, you would like to provide cardiology services there. To that center, we would like to find a partner who is actually supplying to that hospital in some form, some distributor who is doing consumables, whatever. We would actually supply the device, make him a channel partner where he earns a small portion of the revenue of what is earned out of a patient, and we would earn the remaining, and let this cardiologist run this service. So, that is what we are actually trying to enhance. Now, finding the channel partner is actually a difficult one.
It's time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Offline. Sorry?
He's done. Yeah. I mean, it's 5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Anand. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. Audience must have a question. So, let's. Do you want me to go ahead and give him that question now? All right, Anand, by popular choice. We got one question from the audience. There's somebody there. Go ahead.
In India, preventive medicine is still very new. So most often patients go to the doctor when they have a problem. So when a cardiac patient goes into the hospital, he may already have a problem which he has to undergo invasive procedures or whatever. But this device, how do you see it being applied until preventive medicine becomes rampant and
Can I request you? Can I request you to speak louder? I can't hear you. And second, please frame your question very, very sharply. So he says people are already having a stroke by the time they land in a hospital. How your equipment helps?
I understand this question. He wants to know if this is fully preventive, how is adoption going to happen? Because people are not going to walk to the hospital. This question. So when we did study this disease patterns, right, they have early symptoms like usually fatigue, fainting, things that become difficult. They actually go to their doctor, explain, maybe I had a fever, and things like that. The doctor actually looks for things to clear off, and he actually realizes that it's not any of these, and the patient comes back. These things happen in majority of cardiac cases. We are actually targeting that population. When they actually have an early symptom which is doubted, they take a resting ECG, it shows normal. You actually put them on a 24-hour Holter monitoring, you will actually catch the problem a lot more than the resting ECG. That is where we are fitting.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Anand. So I think we need an app for whistling. Okay. There you go. So we got I know we're all, a lot of us are from the technology background, a little bit straight-jacketed, but we do need that app. So let's call upon the next startup. It's Kui. And before they come over, again, let me repeat the logistics. There's a clock here that counts down to 8 minutes. After that, you have 2 minutes to wind up. and then you'll have 5 minutes open for questions. So, Kui.
Good afternoon, guys. So I represent a company called Kui Technologies. We are basically a chronic health management platforms, mostly concentrating on diabetes and hypertension. So the whole company is built upon 3 pillars, right? So how we want to address this problem is being simple, relevant, and connected, right? So coming to the simplicity part, we are well aware that we are addressing a crowd which is probably not the average crowd here. People who are chronic are either like, they are mostly above 40. So one of the problem we have is that there is no good mobile app built which is specifically for old people to use, right? And if you look at the smartphone adoption, in India at least it has become 3 times for people above 45, right? That's when we thought that this is very relevant to build something now, and this is the time to have an app where people with chronic disease can manage their entire health using a mobile app, right? So for sticking to the first principle of being simple, we have enabled devices which are Bluetooth enabled, using which they can measure the data and the data goes to the mobile app, or they can use other 2 means of being sticking to the principle of simple. They can either use voice or can use the camera of the phone to click a picture of the screen device they already have, which may not be Bluetooth enabled, still we capture the data. And we are making it relevant by sticking to the necessary requirements of a diabetic and hypertensive patient, and we are connected in the sense we are connecting with devices, and also not only we are connected with devices, since we have their data, we intend to connect them to labs or online pharmacy, etc. So broadly, if you look at the problem, most of the data which you are going to hospital is getting recorded, but what you are recording at home or logging at home is never recorded in a digital format, right? And lack of medical history for the doctor itself. When you go to hospital, the doctor doesn't have your full picture, right? You might go to Manipal for something, you may go Apollo for something, but there is no comprehensive medical record which you are keeping, and you cannot get a data like how my hemoglobin varied over last 6 months. That's not possible, right? And one of the character which you see in all these chronic patients is recurring needs of medicine, doctor, labs, etc. So if you look at the opportunity, there is 350 million diabetic patients worldwide. In India, we have 65 million. Hypertension is around 1 billion worldwide, and in India we have almost 10% of that, right? And they have a recurring expense of somewhere between $10 to 500 USD in India. And if you look at smartphone usage, it went up in India 5 times, and 50+ usage has gone up 4 times. So same data kind of reflects in all other countries. Pretty much it may vary here and there a bit, but pretty much that's the data towards which world is moving. So if you look at what Kui is doing, before Kui was there, what is happening, and after Kui came, what is going to happen. So currently, most of the data which you collect at home, which can be a temperature, which can be, we are not concentrating on temperature, but I'm just saying temperature, or in case of chronic patients, the blood pressure or blood sugar, nothing is logged. Some people log it in a paper and show it to the doctor, but it's not digitally available. I cannot say how my BP varied over 5 years, right? There is only 50% of medical adherence currently available. That means this data is not available for India, but in US there is a 200 billion USD loss every year because people don't eat medicine at time, right? So this loss is just additional expenditure they are incurring. But if you look at the other spectrum, if somebody is hospitalized for 5 days, that's a huge economic loss, right? That is not included in this. So if you see the total cost, it's very high. And currently, most of the data, this is specifically to India. In India, most of the data is today in paper, and a patient going to hospital, he really has to carry a big file. So that's where, when we are when we can digitalize it and it can be shared across boundaries, the value comes. And impact of medicine. So if I am taking a hypertensive medicine, does it have an impact on me? Like for example, there are patients who should take a B12 to reduce blood pressure because their B12 is less. But if the patient also has calcium deficiency, actually there can be a problem where B12 will reduce calcium. It can have increased BP rather than reducing the BP. But are we really monitoring this impact, right? So those kind of place where they can measure the BP and see the impact of the medicine on the BP. Then other issues are like no pricing benefit for the patient. Today nobody is giving you discount on, like say, going for a lab or buying a medicine. Maybe it started coming, but generally it is not there. So we are going to address these problems on the other side by auto-logging data, simplifying the data capture, providing medical adherence, and automating medical records. We even support, like you have a medical report, you can just click photo of that and we digitalize it, right? So by that way, he doesn't have to go through the effort of keying it in manually. Then there are other things like scheduled recurring medicine services, which I am not going through, but we pretty much solve the recurring pain points which a chronic patient is going through. So how the system works, we have devices which are Bluetooth enabled. We support voice command, or we help them to capture the screen. It goes to a mobile app. From there we have a central, we call it as a smart engine, which continuously analyzes the data. For example, if a person is entering a medicine like Almighty, we try to understand that he has hypertension, right? And we tag him as a hypertensive patient. This continuously happens in the backend, and according to his health profile which is getting created, we target them with services. So these are the devices we have. So traction, so we launched the app in August, so we already have around 45,000, this is like 2 weeks back data. We are already getting 700 downloads per day, and we are daily active user is around 900, and monthly active user is 15K. And how the revenue model will drive, we already seeing a lot of intent to transaction. We are not monetizing any of the transaction as of now, but we are seeing around 200 plus intent to transaction. And this is where we want to reach by March 2017, which is around 2 million downloads. And if you just take this data and project, we will get around 500 transactions per day, not including any marketing efforts. Right now we are not doing much marketing and all, but if you just project this data, that's where we want to reach. So I think there is 20 seconds left. So I will just cover the team also. So my name is Manu. I previously worked with Microsoft and before that with Yahoo, so mainly coming from a technical background. So Prabhakar, he was running a healthcare backend startup company for around 10 years, right? That's a mainly team, and we have Aravind Tiwari as our mentor.
Thank you so much. Let's open it for questions.
One question I have is, how are you incentivizing users to use this? Is this being driven by the doctors? Is this driven by the patients? What is their incentive to use the system?
Yeah, so currently we are pretty much consumer centric. We are not driving it through doctors, right? And if you look at any chronic patients, there is a recurring need, I would say self-quantified motivation in them itself. They today are logging the data at home and how it is captured, and they have a lot of recurring needs, right? Like they need medicine every day, or rather they have to buy the medicine every month. They have to do a lab test every 2 or 3 months, and like they have to consult doctor every few months, right? All these are recurring requirements in them already. And what the output of all this, like taking medicine or going to the lab or seeing doctor, that data has to be captured. That is not captured digitally today. That is the motivation they have. And in fact, our 35% of user is well engaged with our app.
So how does this compare with other apps? I see so many apps. I don't.
Yes, there are a lot. Actually, in fact, if you go and check, there is more than 50 apps in diabetic itself might be there. But how we are differentiating is a lot of people are the app is generally designed for youngsters, right? First of all, right? It's not designed for old people. That's the biggest pain point. That's why a lot of engagement for app, because most of the designer, they want to put something fancy before the user than like thinking about who is the consumer, right? Second, we have innovated on how we can capture data. Voice, nobody is using in world voice to capture medical data, right? Nobody is using screen capture to capture medical data. So we are actually trying to address the problem of simplifying the data capture, right? That is the first problem to solve in my opinion, right? Once you solve the data capture problem, that's when all the solutions around that can be built. You have some questions?
Yeah, I guess the question is around, are you making any changes in outcomes, and can you measure any of the outcomes? It seems like you're saying this is mostly to make the disease more easier, more convenient for the person to manage. But then the question is, do you actually change any outcome in their health?
Yes, we
as
do.
a result of this, and do you have any data or measurements on that?
Yes, so we do that. So as I mentioned, there are 3 places where we actually help them to have an impact on the outcome. So we continuously analyzes the data and tells the patient what is the kind of trend your BP is going, and we also tell them, like, if you're taking a particular medicine, what is the impact of that medicine on your BP, right? And we are extracting all the data, like, say, for example, you are uploading a PDF which contains a lot of health data. We tell them that your creatine level is varying like this over last 6 months, right? Those are very actionable things which we are giving back to the consumer.
Okay, Manu. First thing is, I think you're considering 40 plus as old. I have a problem with that. Okay. Second, you spoke about the technology piece, how it is helping the demand side, the consumer. What about the hospitals, clinics, doctors? What is in it for them? Because they already are on legacy systems.
Yes, so that's one of the reason why we don't want to go to hospitals. There is a big vein which already kept, like if I am diabetic, I'm already going to doctor. I don't want to break that relation. Right? Chronic disease is always like that. So what we are providing is, we are providing doctors with something we call as one pager. So you can actually print out a one pager from an app, which is actually one page, where doctors today takes around 2 minutes to look into somebody's record if you walk in. We have reduced it to 30 seconds. That's the benefit doctor is getting. And we also have an option of sending an offline message to an expert. Right? It's something similar to WhatsApp, where the answer is not given immediately, but we will answer that in 48 hours. So we have a panel of doctors which answers this question. So we don't intend to replace doctor. These queries are meant for your second opinion or small clarification you have. It's not intended to replace the consultation or your relation with the doctor.
It's one from here.
I think in one of the points you had that you do have a hardware, which is right now you're selling through Flipkart, right?
Yes.
But in your presentation, you focus almost 99% on the app. So what was the role of the hardware? I mean, you could have developed the hardware, you're making some profit in selling that, or it just incidental, you could have used anything. So you do have a hardware and software solution, or mostly software solution?
See, we have an hardware solution, but the problem is that we want to concentrate the fact that this is a mass disease and we want to solve the problem for mass, right? Everybody can't afford a device, and people might already have a device, right? So as we are trying to build a solution for a disease like diabetic, which is 300 million people, we cannot ask everybody to buy our hardware to solve their problem, right? That's why hardware is one of the way of simplifying the input. So if you look at the pillars which we talked about, simplicity is a pillar we want to concentrate, and definitely hardware is a way to simplify that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhu.